What up, what up? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. My name is Salvador Brigman, and on this channel, we love to talk about crowdfunding and how to bring a new project, a new idea, a new product into the world. One of the most exciting things which you can do, and I think crowdfunding is so incredibly pivotal and a very useful tool to help you actually accomplish that. So in today's video, I want to get into when it comes to Kickstarter or Indiegogo, how to actually think about setting that funding goal. So if you're gearing up to a Kickstarter campaign, you're thinking about launching a project and using crowdfunding to raise money for your dream, for your passion, for something that you're excited about. We're gonna be talking today about setting that funding goal. What should go into that? How you should be thinking about this? We're gonna be going through that and more in today's YouTube video, and it's coming up right after this. Awesome, man. So welcome back to this channel. Again, my name is Salvador Brigman. I've been in this industry since 2012. I put out podcasts on a weekly basis on iTunes, on Spotify, on this YouTube channel. I also have a great blog out there called crowdcrux.com. We have a bunch of different resources available for you. I got books, I got courses, I got everything to help you on this journey. But the topic of today's video is really about setting that funding goal, right? So if you're trying to raise money, it's really really important to assess how much do you actually need in order to be successful with this whole crowdfunding business, with this whole crowdfunding process. How should you be thinking about this funding goal? So I want to go through that in today's video, but if you've been watching some of my other content, give me a thumbs up on this. You've been enjoying some of the messages I've been putting out there. Let's go through this and let's kind of break this down to make it easier as you're planning for your Kickstarter campaign. So I went to school at George Washington University, and honestly, going to college, going to school was not one of my favorite things. I didn't really like my education. I was more interested in actually practical knowledge, things that can achieve results in my life, whether that's starting a business, whether that's growing a brand, right? Starting a personal brand, whatever it is. I was interested in more practical things. And I think that one of the most important things is if you're trying to study something that isn't available in a textbook, it's really important to study other successful people and other success examples. So that's my first point, is that when you're thinking about setting your goal, I really want you to take some time, literally just, it could be 30 minutes, man. It could be an hour. Set aside just a little bit of time to study some of the other campaigns in your category. So whether you're an author, you're trying to launch a new e-commerce product or physical product, you're trying to do something like a theater project or a board game, a tabletop game, go and look on the category on Kickstarter and get an idea of what are some of the other goals which are being achieved by other creators that are out there. You can do this very easily by actually sifting through the different analytics on Kickstarter there, and you can see in terms of the popular projects, in terms of the recently launched projects, what kinds of goals are people setting, what are they accomplishing, and how much are they actually raising. And typically when a student does this, they also start to notice that actually a lot of campaigns raise more than their actual funding goal. And you might have seen this as well, where you come across a Kickstarter campaign, you're like, wow, I can't believe that this person had like a $30,000 goal and they ended up raising $300,000. So I'm going to talk about that later in the video, but my first task for you is to do a little bit of your own research. If you want to have a Google Doc, write this down on a piece of paper, put it in a spreadsheet, whatever it is, and it will really help when it comes to assessing the goal that you can set, and as well for your specific category. Once you've begun to do a little bit of your own research, first of all, you're probably going to be like me, you're going to be like crazy excited about all these new campaigns, and it's so cool just to watch other creators actually doing their craft and having people respond to that and raising money and getting funding, and it's just such a cool ecosystem, which is crowdfunding. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it as well. So that research process is going to be great because it gets you a lot of qualitative and quantitative data, and you can start to see what are some of the goals that other creators are setting. The next step in this process is to really assess your specific project. Now, everyone has a different type of project out there. You might be trying to raise money for an application or a software app of some kind. You might be trying to come out with the latest and greatest next tech gadget or gizmo. Maybe you've invented a new design product that's made out of plastic, right? Or you've invented something else, maybe a travel apparel or a bag or a watch or a wallet or something like that. Whatever kind of project that you have, whether it's e-commerce related, whether it's more creative in nature, like I said, a book, an album, anything along those lines, really assess what it's going to take you to get across the finish line. So by the finish line, I mean, what do you really need to get this thing off the ground? If you were to think about the future, what's the minimum amount that you would need to really make this thing a reality? Now, crowdfunding, there's a lot of different reasons that go behind it besides just the funding. A lot of this also has to do with assessing demand. Are people actually even interested in having this exist in the world? In addition, when you actually ship out this product, you get a bunch of backers, right? You get tons of people funding this, getting their feedback as well on the actual thing which you have created. So start to assess, like, what would a real budget look like? And go beyond just thinking about this in your head. Really start to write this down. I would say the biggest secret that I have for you when it comes to turning ideas into reality is to get them out of your head. I have so many videos out there on how to create a product. I have so many videos out there on project management, on how to structure a campaign, that kind of stuff. The biggest thing is you want to start to get this out of your head. So whether that's a pie chart, whether that's an Excel sheet, whether that's just a simple Google Doc, or even putting this on paper, start to think about what are the costs that are going to go into bringing this idea that you have into reality. What are some of the things that you're going to need to make good on when it comes to having that A to Z kind of a transformation where it goes from idea into reality? Start to write that information down and start to assess the budget you're going to need for the project. As you begin to go through this process, which I'm outlining in step number 2, I then want you to think a little bit more in terms of gradation. Okay, so what do I mean by gradation? That's a big fancy word, right? By gradation, I mean what would happen if you actually just went for the lowest amount possible in order to really make this thing happen? What are then some of the other ways in which you could enhance the experience for your backers? So for example, let's just say that you need $30,000 to really get this project off the ground. What would happen if you ended up actually, being able to raise $75,000 or $150,000? Because when you begin to think about that in more in like almost like a pyramid terms or gradation terms, you can then actually start to bake this into the actual project itself. So maybe you start with something like a low funding goal and go beyond that, and you have different stretch goals. This is extremely popular in the tabletop game category. If you go and look at some of these different tabletop game projects on Kickstarter, you're going to see tons of campaigns out there who have different stretch goals which are unlocked as you get to a certain funding amount. So think about if this wasn't just a one shot, hey, we're going to raise this or not. What if you started small and from there on out, if you start to raise more and more, you could do cooler and cooler things with this project. Change your mindset from this just being like a one shot or like, I'm going to try this out and it's going to work or it's not, to what would happen if I got some validation? What if I start to get even more popular, more traffic, more demand? How could I increase this project, make it more exciting for backers? Begin to think about things in those terms. So I talk a ton about this in my free Kickstarter course, which goes through the A to Z really of launching a project, everything you need to know when it comes to the video, when it comes to rewards, when it comes to the campaign page, when it comes to marketing, all that kind of stuff. How do you generate a buzz around this Kickstarter campaign? I talk about in my free Kickstarter course, which you can check out at the link down below or at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. Go through that really great primer for anyone who is even a beginner. You've just been studying this for a couple of months, can really get you up to speed quickly, as well as share with you some things that just aren't discussed anywhere else. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description. All right, man, let's talk about the next point when it comes to your Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, and that is the marketing. So I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, and that's the fact that setting a funding goal is not just a logical or an operational exercise, right? I talk a lot of times with engineers and people who are way smarter than me when it comes to math and science and inner mechanics of how products work, all that kind of stuff. I'm not really that guy, I'm more of a marketing and a sales guy. But I talk all the time with these types of students, and one of the things that we come to a conclusion very frequently about is the actual marketing mechanism that comes with the actual funding goal. So it goes beyond just what you need in order to make this accomplish, this project happen, if you will. If you start to actually do your research and you notice many of these Kickstarter campaigns that have extremely low funding goals. Why is that? It's because it's a marketing mechanism. Okay. When you hit your goal and when you hit it quickly, you start to actually trend better on Kickstarter.com and as well on other sites as well, like Indiegogo and other crowdfunding sites that are available out there. So it's not just about the logistics of it. It's also a marketing mechanism. It's sort of a marketing strategy, if you will, to be able to hit your goal quickly, kind of create that excitement. And as well, backers also know that this project is going to happen. Because again, if you don't hit or exceed your goal on Kickstarter, the project's not going to happen yet. So it can create tons of excitement. People can get really riled up and they want to actually support you and continue to share this. And there's nothing that's cooler than being a part of a Kickstarter campaign that maybe you had a 30K goal and you're at 300K. It feels like you're part of this community, part of this phenomenon. So setting that goal is also a marketing exercise. And I talk about that more in some of my other YouTube YouTube videos. The next point that I want to make when it comes to setting your goal on Kickstarter, so we talked a little bit about the actual logistics of what you need for a budget. We talked a little bit about the study and the research, what you have to do. We talked about the fact that it's also a marketing exercise. One of the things that I think that isn't discussed enough in this industry, and that's kind of what I've made my career on, right? Is sharing things with you, demystifying things that just aren't discussed anywhere else in the public consciousness or just in general when it comes to this particular niche. And that's the fact that you need to have a bit of a longer term view than just a 30-day Kickstarter campaign. So hear me out here. When you're running a campaign, typically I'd say on average, the number of days or the duration of that campaign is usually around 30 days. It could be 30, it could be 45, it could be 25. On average, it's around 30 days. However, if you really think about the actual launch, and you think about what do you want to accomplish, let's just say that you do continue to get demand and interest when it comes to this new project which you're launching. Well, then your actual duration might extend even longer. If you're doing things like going into Indiegogo in demand, or even after that, you have all that social proof, you have tons of people that are singing your praises, you have media mentions. Maybe you then also funnel this into a pre-order campaign on your website. And then maybe you're selling via e-commerce. So you want to think of the actual marketing exercise of the campaign in a much longer duration, because if you do have interest and if you do the testing phase, right, that I talk about with the pre-launch, then you can get to the end of this process and you've really maximized your results when it comes to putting all of this effort into a launch, which I usually call it being like almost like a business boot camp, because you're kind of compressing tons of activity into a very short span of time. So if you think about it from that time frame, let's just say that you are doing an e-commerce product and you need to purchase a bunch of inventory and also pay for tooling costs, right? You might be like, oh no, Sal, I'm so afraid of maybe setting a really low goal, because what happens if I don't hit it and then I have to pay for my tooling costs and I have to pay for all this inventory? What if though you extend your timeline horizon and your actual thinking? It's not just about this initial campaign, it's also about you maybe going into another platform as well and raising money. Maybe it's also then doing pre-orders, doing e-commerce. So you have a lot of inventory then which can be sold out over a longer span of time. So this goes beyond, this just this video, because everyone's category, everyone's niche is different. I have to kind of tailor that to you, but really start to think more long-term. What happens if you launch this, you do what I talk about in my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, you follow that to a T, you are successful, you have demand. Once you have demand, you have an audience, you have momentum, man, it's like the world is your oyster, because you can do so much with that. So think a little bit more longer term when it comes to your actual campaign. All right, man, I gotta talk about this point, and I really kind of don't want to necessarily talk about it, but it's something that exists and it's something that I have to point out. And that's because I think that crowdfunding is really an ecosystem. It's a community. And there are sometimes bad actors in this community who don't really, they kind of fly by the seat of their pants. They're not always necessarily thinking about logistics and planning. And in addition, sometimes they are nefarious in nature. So I do want to put this out there that if you are running a campaign and you're trying to do it ethically, you also owe a duty of obligation to your backers. So let's just say that you do end up raising a significant sum like 150K or 250K or 300K or more on a crowdfunding campaign website. What happens after that? So after you actually run that campaign, you're successful, you then have to deliver your perks and rewards to those backers, right? So you want to think as well about budgeting and, okay, so if I did hit my goal, let's just say that, how would I then start to deliver those perks and rewards to backers? What if I raised 5 times my goal? What if I raised 10 times? What I recommend doing, and this can be a little bit more complicated, is creating a couple of different cost projections. So let's just say on a very low basis, minimal basis, I raise this amount. If I'm more aggressive and I raise this amount, or if I'm really aggressive and it goes super well, I raise this amount. How is that going to impact my costs, my budget, my shipping, my fulfillment, all those kinds of things that go into a crowdfunding campaign? How is it going to impact those various numbers? So that's one of my tips for you, is that in really trying to deliver and have a good experience for backers, to make sure that we have a good crowdfunding ecosystem where there's a tremendous amount of good trust that's built in. You really want to think about and plan for these, because that way you don't necessarily oversell your product or you undersell it and you're not able to deliver those particular rewards and those goods. So really spend some time thinking about that point. So as you're discovering at this point in the video, it's part art and part science when it comes to setting your Kickstarter goal. So if you want to discover more, first of all, I have a great free website out there at crowdcrux.com, which has tons of blog posts, articles, podcasts. You can really sink your teeth into that and learn a tremendous amount about running a successful Kickstarter campaign. In addition, if you'd like to gain access to me when it comes to my one-on-one coaching, as well as access to some of my private training, some of the workshops, templates, everything that goes into putting together a successful campaign, you can check out my mastermind down below at crowdcrux.com/mastermind, and you can be in that as long as you would like when it comes to giving access to me, doing coaching calls, and also making sure that you set a strong foundation motivation for your campaign. So again, you can check that out at the link down below at crowdcrux.com/mastermind. But if you got some value out of this video, thank you so much for showing in. Give me a thumbs up if you did like this video. Come subscribe to this channel for more content just like this. I put out content on a weekly basis, and I hope you enjoy some of the videos that I have that are coming out in the future. Again, my name is Salvador Brigman, and I will see you next time.